If you pick up a bottle of single malt scotch tonight, there is a very good chance the colour has been faked, the flavour has been stripped, and the age has been deliberately hidden from you. None of this will appear on the label. The label will not tell you food colouring was added. It will not tell you a filtration process removed texture from your glass. And it will not tell you the distillery replaced a perfectly good aged bottle with a younger, cheaper product at a higher price. Today, we are exposing exactly how they do it. Quick thing before we get into this. The data on this channel shows that over 80% of you watching right now are not subscribed. That means you are showing up for the content, but the algorithm has no reason to show you the next video. If you care about understanding what is actually in your glass and what the whiskey industry does not want you to know, hit subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Here is the first deception, and it is the one hiding in plain sight. If you pour a glass of Scotch whiskey tonight and admire the deep amber colour, there is a strong probability you are not looking at the natural colour of the spirit. You are looking at a food additive called E150A. It is a caramel colouring made by burning carbohydrates into a dark syrup, and the Scotch whisky industry adds it to the majority of single malts and virtually every blended Scotch on the market. The Scotch Whisky Act of 2009 explicitly permits its use. The only substances legally allowed in Scotch whisky are water and plain caramel colouring. That is it. No flavouring, no sweetener, no preservatives, just water and food dye. And the industry has leaned into that permission aggressively. Here is why this matters. The human brain associates darker whiskey with older whiskey. When you see a deep mahogany colour in the glass, your brain automatically assumes this spirit has been sitting in a cask for a long time, extracting rich flavours from the wood. Distilleries know this. They have known it for decades, and they exploit it by adding E150A to young whiskey to make it look like it spent more time in a barrel than it actually did. A 3-year-old no-age statement Scotch can be tinted to look identical to a 15-year-old single malt, and you would never know because the label is not required to tell you. The Dalmore 12-year-old is a perfect example. It costs $60 to $70. It is bottled at 40%. It uses E150A caramel colouring, and it is chill filtered. Meanwhile, the Glenfarclas 12-year-old sits on the same shelf for around $40 to $50. It is bottled at 43% and is labelled natural colour. Glenfarclas has never added a drop of E150A to any product in their entire history. The cheaper bottle is the more honest product. The more expensive bottle is the one that needed help from a food additive to look the part. In the United States, the United Kingdom, and Ireland, there is no legal requirement to disclose the presence of E150A on a whiskey label. You can spend $100 on a bottle of single malt, pour it into a glass, admire the rich colour, and have absolutely no idea that the colour was adjusted in a factory with the same food dye they put in cola and soy sauce. However, in Germany, the law requires caramel colouring to be declared on the label. In Sweden, the state alcohol monopoly Systembolaget requires every product to disclose whether E150A is present. This means if you want to know whether your favourite Scotch has been artificially coloured, you do not check the label on the bottle in your hand. You check the German or Swedish listing for the same product. If the German label says Mit Farbstoff or the Systembolaget database says yes next to the colouring field, your whiskey has been dyed. That is how you catch them. And to be clear, the distilleries that refuse to use E150A are happy to tell you about it. Bruich Ladich prints natural colour on every bottle. Glen Alecky, the distillery that won World's Best Single Malt in 2025, does not add colouring to any of its products. Ardbeg does not use it. Springbank does not use it. Glenfarclas does not use it. These distilleries treat the natural colour of their whiskey as a point of pride. The distilleries that do use E150A never mention it on the bottle. That silence tells you everything you need to know about how confident they are in the natural appearance of their product. Here is the second deception. It is called chill filtering, and it is even more insidious because it actively removes flavor from your whiskey to solve a cosmetic problem you would never notice on your own. When whiskey is bottled at lower alcohol strengths, typically below 46%, the fatty acids, proteins, and esters that contribute to body and mouthfeel can make the liquid turn slightly cloudy when cold water or ice is added. This is completely natural, and it does not make the whiskey taste worse. In fact, those compounds are part of what gives whiskey its richness, its oily texture, and its long finish on the palate. But decades ago, distilleries decided consumers would be put off by a slight haze in the glass. So they invented a process that chills the whiskey down to near freezing, forces it through a series of fine metal filters, and strips out the compounds that cause cloudiness. The whiskey comes out crystal clear, but it also comes out thinner, flatter, and less complex. And just like E150A, there is no requirement to tell you this was done. The label will not say chill filtered, it will say nothing at all. Here is the part that makes mechanics and engineers furious when they learn about it. The distillery spent years aging that whiskey in carefully selected casks, building layers of flavor and texture through a slow interaction between spirit and wood. Then, right before bottling, they ran it through a filter that stripped out a portion of those flavors for purely cosmetic reasons. They removed some of what you paid for so the whiskey would look prettier in the glass. And they charged you full price for the diminished product. Think about that from an engineering perspective. You would never buy a car where the manufacturer deliberately removed 20% of the engine's output so the exhaust would be quieter. But that is exactly what chill filtering does to whiskey. It solves a problem that did not need to be solved, and it damages the product in the process. The distilleries that refuse to chill filter, brands like Glenallachie, Springbank, Kilchoman, and many independent bottlers, print non-chill filtered on the label because they know it is a selling point among informed drinkers. The brands that do chill filter stay silent. Again, the silence is the tell. Here is the third deception, and it is the most financially damaging one for the consumer. Over the past 15 years, the Scotch whisky industry has been systematically replacing bottles that carried age statements with no age statement releases at equal or higher prices. An age statement on a Scotch bottle tells you the youngest whisky in that bottle. If it says 12 years old, every drop in that bottle has been aged for at least 12 years. That is a concrete, verifiable, legally binding number. A no age statement bottle tells you nothing. The whiskey inside could be 3 years old, it could be 20 years old. You have no way to know, and the distillery is not required to tell you. The Glenlivet introduced a no-age statement product called Founder's Reserve and used it to replace the 12-year-old in major markets, including the United Kingdom and Germany. The 12-year-old was retained in the United States, but the direction was clear. A no-age statement product with younger, cheaper whiskey was being positioned as the new entry point for one of the world's biggest single malt brands. Macallan introduced an entire colour-based range with names like Gold, Amber, Sienna, and Ruby that told you absolutely nothing about how long the whiskey was aged. The message from Macallan's marketing department was that colour, not age, should be how you judge whiskey. That is a convenient argument for a company that needs to sell more young whiskey at old whiskey prices. Distilleries across Scotland followed the same playbook. The marketing language shifted from concrete numbers to vague adjectives. Words like crafted, curated, and rich in character replaced 12 years old on the shelf. This is not an upgrade. This is a downgrade, dressed in better packaging. If you want to understand the financial incentive, just look at the bottle redesigns. When a distillery removes the age statement, they almost always simultaneously release the whiskey in a heavier, more expensive-looking bottle with thicker glass and a fancier box. They are spending the money they saved on younger whiskey on better packaging to distract you from the fact that you are getting less. Here is the financial math. When a distillery sells you a 12-year-old Scotch, they are selling you a product that required 12 years of warehouse storage, 12 years of evaporation loss to the Angel share, 12 years of capital tied up in inventory, and 12 years of patience. That costs real money. In Scotland, roughly 2% of the whiskey in every cask evaporates into the air every single year. Over 12 years, the distillery loses roughly a quarter of the liquid it originally put into that barrel. They have to account for that loss in the price. They also have to pay for the warehouse space, the insurance, and the opportunity cost of not selling that whiskey sooner. An age statement is a financial commitment. It means the distillery invested years of resources into making that bottle the best it could be. When they replace it with a no-age statement product using younger whiskey, their production costs drop dramatically. They can bottle and sell in 3 to 5 years instead of 12. They lose less to evaporation. They free up warehouse space. They turn their inventory faster, and they pass zero of those savings on to you. The price stays the same or increases. The age goes down, the marketing budget goes up, and the consumer pays more for less. That is the math the label does not show you. But here is the escape hatch, and it is sitting right next to the overpriced bottles on the same shelf. There is a fourth deception that has exploded in the past 5 years, and that is the celebrity whiskey. Every actor, athlete, and musician with a marketing team has launched a whiskey brand. The pattern is always the same. They buy bulk whiskey from an existing distillery, sometimes a contract distillery that produces spirit for dozens of brands simultaneously. They pour it into a custom bottle designed by a luxury packaging firm. They build a marketing campaign around the celebrity's personal story, their refined taste, their journey of discovery. And they charge you $50 to $80 for a product that would cost $25 without the famous name on the label. The whiskey inside these bottles is not bad. It is just completely unremarkable for the price. And the label will never tell you where it was actually distilled, how old it is, or how many other brands are selling the exact same liquid under different celebrity names. This is not whiskey making, it is licensing. The honest distilleries still exist, and they are not hiding. You look for 3 things on a bottle. First, an age statement. If the bottle tells you how old the whiskey is, that is a distillery that is confident enough in its product to give you a verifiable number instead of a marketing slogan. Second, the words natural color or no coloring added. If you see that on the label, the distillery is telling you the color in your glass came from the cask, not from a factory additive. Third, the words non-chill filtered or the abbreviation NCF. If you see that, the distillery is telling you they left the flavor compounds in your whiskey instead of stripping them out for cosmetic reasons. When you see all 3 on a single bottle, you are looking at an honest whiskey. Age statement, natural color, non-chill filtered. That combination means the distillery aged the whiskey for the stated period, did not artificially color it, and did not remove flavor through filtration. You are getting exactly what the cask produced. Nothing added, nothing removed. Glenallachie does all 3, Springbank does all 3, Kilchoman does all 3. Many independent bottlers from Gordon and MacPhail and Signatory Vintage do all 3. Here is the detail that the big brands desperately do not want you to understand. Independent bottlers buy single casks directly from distilleries and bottle them without colouring, without chill filtering, and usually at higher strength. You can find a single cask bottling from a famous Highland or Speyside distillery through an independent bottler for $40 to $60 that will outperform the distillery's own $70 to $90 official bottling in a blind tasting. The independent bottler gives you the whiskey as it came from the cask. The official bottling gives you the whiskey after the marketing department finished with it. These bottles typically cost the same or less than the artificially coloured, chill-filtered, no age statement products sitting next to them on the shelf. The honest whiskey is often cheaper than the dishonest whiskey. That should tell you exactly how much of the price on a big-name bottle is paying for the liquid and how much is paying for the marketing. The whiskey industry does not want you to know any of this. They want you to pick up a bottle based on the color of the liquid, the weight of the glass, and the story on the back label. They want you to associate darker color with better quality. They want you to believe that a no-age statement bottle is a creative evolution instead of a cost-cutting measure. And they want you to never ask why some distilleries proudly print natural color, non-chill filtered on their labels while others stay completely silent. The label is not your friend. The label is a marketing document designed to separate you from your money. The only information you can trust on a whiskey label is the information the distillery chose to include voluntarily, because the legally required information tells you almost nothing about what was done to the liquid before it went into the bottle. An age statement is voluntary. Declaring natural color is voluntary. Stating non-chill filtered is voluntary. The distilleries that include all three are the ones that have nothing to hide. The distilleries that include none of them are the ones spending their budget on bottle designers and brand ambassadors instead of better casks and longer maturation. But the labeling deception is only half the story. The other half is the pricing trap. Certain whiskey brands are charging 3 to 4 times what their product is worth, based purely on name recognition and bottle design. And there are specific bottles under $40 that outperform them in blind tastings and international competitions. If you found this helpful, consider subscribing. We'll see you in the next one.